We want to welcome those who have started joining us this evening for our District 4 E-SPLOST, town hall forum, virtual town hall forum. We appreciate your time this evening. We're going to give a few more minutes to allow those who are logging on at the moment to get settled in to our meeting before we get going. And once we do that, we'll get things started with, welcome from Superintendent Mary Elizabeth Davis. So stay tuned. We'll be with you shortly.
Well, good evening and welcome to our town hall series, specifically talking about investing in our children's future here in Henry County Schools. I am so honored to join you this evening, and I'm also really thankful that you could carve out some time in your evening to spend with us. We've got a really informative time prepared to have together, but really this stems from the grand conversation we had as a community just about a year ago, when we really engaged in conversations in each one of our schools, each school community, about the hopes, dreams, and aspirations for education for young people here in the Henry County community. Your perspectives were captured and gathered, and really, you will see serve as a key foundation for how we believe we continue our work together as a community, continue that dialogue, and also continue that investment in our children's future. We're here today to talk about our Education SPLOST 6 proposed referendum, currently on the ballot, and actually voting day is March 16th, with early voting having already begun. And I'm joined today with a fine group of panelists that I'd love to take a moment to ask them to say hi to you. So first, let me begin with our board member for District 4, Mrs. Sophe Pope, the host of our evening town hall. Let me say hi to Mrs. Pope. It's good to see you today.
Yes, thank you so much. I'm really excited for this time we have together.
Thanks, Mrs. Pope. We are also joined by a community member and partner in education extraordinaire, chair of our Committee for Our Children's Future, Mr. Mike Griffin. Thanks for joining us tonight, and can you tell our audience a hello?
Hey, Dr. Davis. Yes, glad to join everyone. Excited to support this SPLOST campaign.
Thanks, Mike. It's good to see you tonight. We also have team members from the Henry County Schools team. Our Chief of Staff is Dr. Carl Knowlton joining us here tonight. Our Chief Operations Officer, Mr. Josh Malcolm, has joined us tonight. And our Executive Director of Communications and Public Relations and our facilitator of all of this that we will accomplish tonight is Mr. Katie Harden. Now, before we get started into our discussion, I just want to set the stage by acknowledging really the magnitude, the weight, and the gravity of this season that we are all navigating as a community. And honestly, it would be really easy to ask the question, why now? Why layer this body of work and time to talk about this body of work in a season already riddled with a lot of complexities and really a lot of responsibilities? Well, the reason is because despite all that has changed and all that has come before us, we have never lost sight of our core responsibility for students, their learning, and our responsibility to invest in their future today and not wait until their future to invest in it. So our conversation today is about how do we increase and advance opportunities and access and outcomes to academic programs like robotics and STEM and fine arts education, and how as an organization and a school system, we are prepared to responsibly prepare for our growth that is anticipated in our great community. We also want to continue that grand investment in instructional resources in the hands of teachers and our students. And where would we be today without the foresight of previous boards and previous superintendents to invest in technology through our E-SPLOST program? Our conversation today talks about how we continue that work and how do we do that together as a community to prepare for our future. So I am excited to have a conversation today. I look forward to this time we have together, and I'm thankful that you would spend your evening with us. And it's my pleasure to now actually pass the baton off to Board of Education member, Mrs. Sophe Pope.
Thank you so much, Dr. Davis. I appreciate that welcome, and I really am grateful to all of you that have joined us this evening for this town hall. Again, my name is Sophe Pope, and I represent you, District 4, on our Board of Education. And I serve on the Board of Education alongside this wonderful group of people that you see pictured here on your screen. It is such an honor and privilege to serve alongside them. And our governance team actually serves 43,000 students, and we employ over 6,000 employees, which does make Henry County Schools the largest employer in our county. But as a board, we have really been strengthened by a defined governance model. And that all began a couple years ago with shared core beliefs and commitments. And those really have been the bedrock of everything that we have been doing these last couple of years and really unifying us as a governance team. But those are just so vital to the work that we are doing. And then after that came our plan of action. You will commonly hear it referred to as policy BAB, but that really solidified this work and really set our compass in this one direction for the betterment of all of our students. And then, believe it or not, a year ago, last month, started those community conversations that really started to put together this framework for a strategic plan. And that work is so energizing and so exciting. But through those conversations, we heard from over 8,000 community participants. And throughout those conversations that were held in community groups and schools and faculty meetings and school council meetings, we heard common themes emerge. Those common themes were around technology, preparing for growth, fine arts programs, STEM and robotics programs, school safety and security, and transportation. And while those conversations were what created that framework for our strategic plan, they're also the themes and concerns that you will see addressed here today in this E-SPLOST presentation. So I am incredibly grateful for the voices of our community and the investment that you all have in our children's future. And I really believe that today's discussion is vital in continuing this community dialogue and investing in what our kids most definitely deserve and what we know as a board that our community is counting on. So again, thank you. I'm excited for the presentation, and I will turn it over at this time to Mr. Hardin to get us started.
I always have to remember that I have to unmute myself before I start talking, and I apologize about that delay. But we do want to welcome everyone again to this presentation about E-SPLOST 6. And I want to thank Mrs. Pope for those words and the welcome from Superintendent Davis. And I would like to remind those who are joining us this evening as a part of this presentation that there will probably be questions that come up as we go through this presentation, and we want you to ask those questions. So there's a Q&A feature as part of this Zoom meeting and this recording that you can utilize to populate a question, and we will work to answer those questions during a portion that's set aside after our presentation at the conclusion of all that this evening. So without further ado, let's get started. And when we talk about E-SPLOST, we want to make sure that people understand its roots, its foundation. And we want to also make sure that people understand the difference between this E-SPLOST and other SPLOST, not to be confused with one another. E-SPLOST stands for Education Special Purpose Local Option Sales Tax. You may have heard of other SPLOST. This one is dedicated solely to the public schools in Henry County. Now, how this E-SPLOST opportunity came about was an answer that the state legislature really put out to help our schools grapple with exploding population and growth of students moving into districts when districts have a general operating budget that is largely consumed by salaries and benefits. Those funds are earmarked for the salaries and benefits of the teachers and the staff throughout the district. So E-SPLOST was an answer to help with kind of supplementing some of the needs that were associated with growth and expansion. And so in 1996, state legislature put out a constitutional amendment that was approved by the voters of the state that then went, each respective community and school district could then put it before their voters whether or not they wanted to approve a 1 cent sales tax on every dollar spent in that county that would then go towards education and capital projects, through education. I want to remind everybody that E-SPLOST collections run in 5-year periods. So every 5 years, at the conclusion of one E-SPLOST, we have to go back before the voters to ask them to reapprove or approve the continuation of the SPLOST collections, the E-SPLOST collections, to ensure that we're able to continue our growth and support of a high-performing school district in our area. So let's move right along and talk about what E-SPLOST collections can go for, and hopefully the slide will change here. There it is. So when we talk about E-SPLOST funds and what they can be used for, it's very important to make this distinction that they can only be used for capital projects. Capital projects, most people commonly know as construction and renovations and expansions, but they can also be used for things like technology, transportation, learning equipment, and resources. Those are some common items that E-SPLOST funds have regularly been used for over the past several years that we've been fortunate to receive these pennies from sales here in Henry County. What E-SPLOST funds cannot be used for: salaries and benefits. We cannot hire, we cannot supplement the salaries of our employees with these pennies that are collected. So it can only be used for our capital projects that we'll give you some examples of and talk about the E-SPLOST 6 capital projects moving forward as a part of this latest proposal. So we also want people to know who directly supports E-SPLOST. It's not just the residents of Henry County that are responsible for this 1 cent sales tax. Anyone, the simple answer, who eats, sleeps, or shops in Henry County or owns a business in Henry County helps directly support public education and our public school system. Somebody in Hawaii right now could be purchasing something at any one of our 4 cities: Hampton, McDonough, Locust Grove, or Stockbridge. And and for every dollar that is spent, even virtually, through the internet, 1 penny of every dollar goes towards public education. So that's pretty cool to think about, that anybody who spends money here in Henry County does support our public education system. People that know about NASCAR races know that NASCAR's zooming into the county here really soon, and all those folks that will be coming and spending money here in Henry County supporting education. Folks that come in for youth sports tournaments support our public education, and all those folks who travel up and down I-75 on a daily basis, whether it be to go to Disney World or go north or wherever they may be traveling to, when they stop in Henry County to eat, sleep, or shop, they help support public education. And A little fun fact we like to share: since 1998, when that very first penny started being collected here in Henry County, 62 billion pennies have been collected in support of public education. Now that we know about, what, all the particulars of the E-SPLOST and how it was founded, let's talk about the growth over the last 20 years in Henry County. As you can see on the slide right here, the population in a 10-year period nearly doubled. Our student enrollment most definitely reached that doubling mark. But you also see that our schools, we couldn't, with the increase in student population, we couldn't just keep pushing kids into the same schools. We had to provide spaces and new schools for student learning and teaching to take place. And so you see the increase in the number of schools just in a 10-year period, thanks to E-SPLOST, largely to make that happen. And to keep up with the student enrollment growth, we also had to have enough employees, not only to teach our students, but to maintain a high level of operations all across the district to support all the functions of a high performing school district. Now you see from 2000 to 2009 to 2019, we still had some growth, not as much as we did from 99 to 2009, but current projections do show that we are about to hit a very steep incline once again in moving Henry County's population, student enrollment, and of course, subsequently, we're going to need to support both of those with investments in expansion of schools and some new school buildings. And you'll see some of that later on in this presentation as we talk about E-SPLOST 6. So let's talk about, since we've laid the foundation, let's talk about the successes that have occurred with the previous five E-SPLOST, starting with E-SPLOST 1. Now, E-SPLOST 1 was approved by the voters in 97. The first penny started rolling in 1998. And as such, we were able to complete 6 brand new schools that you see here on your screen, renovations of 2 schools, a new gym at one of our middle schools. But you see some of those common items that I was referring to earlier: technology, roof repairs, also land acquisition. With growth on the horizon, we have to make sure we strategically purchase land for that growth. And we can, through E-SPLOST funds, purchase land for future growth. So you'll see those as common purchases and accomplishments under E-SPLOST that we cover here moving forward. But we just want to make sure that people understand why those are on there. They are cyclical in nature. They are, they come on a cycle. And so we have to make sure that we use these funds to help support that as we grow. E-SPLOST 2, as you can see, the date range there, we constructed 8 new schools during that time. 2 additions in the district. We also helped replace some gym flooring at our elementary schools because no one wants to play in an elementary school gym with carpet on it. And that's what was on there at the time. You see a focus on technology right here. And then, of course, the last item on that list is administrative offices. The district administrative offices that we currently utilize were part of E-SPLOST 2, and this former school was converted to administrative offices. And you're also going to hear a little bit about, some plans for administrative offices in the future as a part of E-SPLOST 6. As we go into E-SPLOST 3, that you see, we don't have as many new schools constructed, but we did have 4 new schools that you can see listed here. And then we also had 4 renovations or additions at various locations in the county. You also see added on this list, different from the previous 2, some bus purchases. We have to utilize E-SPLOST funds to help, provide new buses to replace aging buses in our fleet. You'll hear a little bit more about that later on as well. But we also have a focus on our security cameras and our security features in our schools to make sure that, as a part of a high performing performance learning environment, we have to have a safe and secure environment. And during E-SPLOST 6, we utilize some of those funds to purchase and upgrade security cameras at all of our schools. As a part of E-SPLOST 4, you see now we only have 1 new school, but we added 4 major additions at 2 of our high schools and 1 of our middle schools. And then, of course, you see probably one of the hallmark programs in our entire system is that Academy for Advanced Studies, which is, really made its way to be known as not only a strong business support program for all of our business community partners who really have a strong interest in this, but our students have a high interest in being able to come to this college and career academy. It started as a sizable addition on the back of what was then Henry County High School. It was so popular that we actually replaced Henry County High School with a new high school and let the Academy for Advanced Studies take over that entire building, because again, we have such a high interest from our students in our district. You also see on that list school renovations, major renovations and updates at 14 of our schools across the district. You'll see the remaining 35 in E-SPLOST 5, excuse me, that would also undergo these similar substantial renovations and updates. But I also want to bring your attention to the technology infrastructure upgrades. Very, very important that we build this capacity of our district to support technology system-wide, and you'll understand why as we move into that next E-SPLOST. You continue to see a focus on security right here and instructional resources, as well as the, through some savings, we were actually able to go back as part of E-SPLOST 4 and add middle school AC in the gyms there at all of our middle schools in the district. Now, let's get to where we are today, and that is E-SPLOST 5. So there it is, populated on your screen right now. This is where we currently sit. And E-SPLOST 5, we are still collecting pennies in support of the projects that are on this list. But as a part of this list, we had 2 replacement schools that were constructed, McDonough High School and Middle School, just great additions to the many buildings that we have all across our district. You see a brand new performing arts center on the north side of the county. And if you haven't been up to Fairview yet to see that facility, let me tell you, it is one of the premier performing arts centers in the entire state of Georgia. Just really a jewel in Henry County in the Southern Crescent region. But that third item on the list, let's talk about that one for a second. Now, when this E-SPLOST list was put before the voters for their consideration and support of it, no one knew that in 2020 we would be facing a pandemic. But thankfully, with these student learning devices that were designed to support students in the school building, but also at home when they were doing homework and projects outside the school building, that these computing devices were readily available for our students when we had to move to remote learning almost this time 1 year ago. Thankfully, we had those. We were in a much better position than a lot of our counterparts all across the state. And, as we've continued to enhance our remote learning operations, thankfully, we've had these devices. But as everyone knows, technology does age over a 5-year period, and we'll talk about that opportunity as we move into E-SPLOST 6. You also see some high school multipurpose facilities that were constructed, turf fields at all of our middle school and high school athletic joint complexes. You also see more buses and transportation focused on here, as well as some energy management upgrades that have really helped us to maximize our energy efficiency in the district. So, that being said, we get close to now talking about E-SPLOST 6. And before I turn it over to Josh Malcolm, it's important to remind people that the list that he's about to cover is the culmination of many conversations, many hours, thousands of conversations with people from all over our community who have a vested interest in our schools. And their voices are what, has resulted in the projects that you're about to see for E-SPLOST 6. So without further ado, I'd like to turn it over to Mr. Josh Malcolm to walk you through E-SPLOST 6 proposed projects.
Thanks, JD. Good evening, everybody. I am Josh Malcolm, the Chief Operations Officer for Henry County Schools. And I kind of want to start where JD left off real quickly. You've heard from Dr. Davis and our board member as well. We were doing strategic planning this time last year and a little bit before this time last year. So we did reach out to them through advisory meetings, school city council meetings, a survey we did as part of our district strategic planning. But also in that, we started to hear some operational themes that emerged that you will see through these projects as I move through them. Operational themes you've heard, such as safety measures, always at the top of the list with our community, continued growth, technology enhancements, transportation upgrades, STEM opportunities, and then fine arts enhancements as well. So those really started to come out of those conversations. And along with the growth projects that we know we need to continue to do through SPLOST, we really started to focus on those as well from what we heard from the community. So we'll just start with the first one and I talked about it, it is the additional safety measures for all of our schools. We always hear that in the community. It's a good thing for us to continue to look into. And so we will be providing a security access control system for all of our schools moving forward. You may recall when we built McDonough High School and Middle School as part of SPLOST 5, we piloted a system over there of the security access control. So what that will mean is you come to the front door of a school and it will be locked. There will be a buzzer system and a camera that will allow you to speak to the main administrative area. They will have a camera as well. They buzz you in from there, and then you go into the main office area to let them know where you need to go. And before you can go into the rest of the facility, you will be buzzed into that. And it will also allow us to provide key card readers for all of our exterior doors for our staff as well. So our schools will be locked during the day. Moving forward. And then you see fire alarm and intercom systems that we have to do. I'll talk a little bit about that in just a second. Another bedrock item is the technology. You heard from JD earlier. Didn't know it at the time, but when those devices were bought during SPLOST 5, they are around 5 years old now for our students and our staff. So as part of SPLOST 6, we need to do a refresh for all of those devices. I don't know where we'd be today if we had not if our board had not moved forward with that purchase during SPLOST 5. So that technology refresh will be a part of SPLOST 6. Concerning transportation, another big thing we heard from the community, we've been able to buy some buses through our previous SPLOST programs, but never really made it the priority that it needs to be this time. So we are planning to add 25 new clean fuel air-conditioned buses each year for 5 years, 125 total. As a part of this SPLOST, E-SPLOST 6, which will really accelerate us being able to replace some of the aging fleet that we have at this point. Also, we are proposing to a second transportation facility. We currently have 8 maintenance bays in our existing facility. We're going to add a second one in another part of the county with 8 maintenance bays. So we'll be able to double the amount of maintenance bays we have for our transportation department. We're not getting rid of the existing one. After the new one is built, we will go back in and renovate that facility that has not been renovated previously. So a lot more transportation than you've seen in our previous SPLOST program. Instructional resources. Some of those items that you don't necessarily think of when you think of a SPLOST program, you typically think about the buildings, but these are just as important to us. And we heard it during our community conversations. Instructional resources for teachers and learning resources for students, along with intervention tools, will be standards aligned in all core content areas, in addition to world languages, CTAE, fine arts, health PE, and more. So we'll be able to get that balance of digital and print resources through SPLOST 6. Fine arts, another strong component of our E-SPLOST, or part of our school system. We heard that during the community conversations. Proposed in E-SPLOST 6 is the purchase of instruments for growth and replacement in current school programs, instruments for new programs across the district, and equipment for choral, music, visual arts, and theater classes at all levels. So we will have a band and orchestra program moving forward at all of our middle schools and high schools. And then interest in robotics has taken off across the district, and we heard that as well. So in our community conversation, so course materials will be purchased for every school in the district for robotics. And then, moving into the construction projects, we know construction continues to play a huge part of our SPLOST program. You heard JD talking about how we've grown since 1999 to now. I always like to pause here for a minute. When the growth really started to hit us in the early 2000s and we started to build the schools, we had close to 800 trailers to deal with that rapid growth that we were experiencing. Through E-SPLOST 6 or through E-SPLOST 5, we've gotten that number down to 48 trailers currently in our system. And through E-SPLOST 6, through these construction projects, we'll be able to eliminate the need for the current trailers that exist in our system. So, construction in the earlier E-SPLOST was a main focus to keep up with that increased enrollment. That will continue. 5 proposed new construction projects, with 3 of those being new schools. A new STEM high school will be constructed in response to the community's growing interest in STEM opportunities for students. Also, again, speaks to that strategic planning that we heard when we were reaching out to the community. 2 elementary schools are slated to be built to help relieve growing populations, 4 schools nearby to those new schools. And there are also plans to construct a new district administration office building. As we've grown in our schools, we've also grown at the admin level. And we won't be getting rid of the existing facility we have, but we will be building an expansion to it. So we currently have trailers behind our district office. We also have staff that are in the schools right now that really kind of need to be in the district administration area. We just don't have room for them right now. We also utilize 2 residential houses that are right next door to our district office. So through this expansion, we'll be able to eliminate that and bring some of that staff back into the district office setting. And then once that's complete, we'll go back in and renovate our current district office. So we're expanding. We're not getting rid of the existing facility that we have. And as mentioned, with regard to growth, there are 6 schools that have been identified as needing expansion due to current and anticipated growth in their areas. So we've got growth in a lot of areas in our county, most of our county actually. The good news is most of our county schools, we have the room for growth, but there are some schools that are popping up that need some expansion in this next time period for our SPLOST program. So you can see on the screen, Dutchtown High School, Dutchtown Middle School, Locust Grove High School, Ola Middle School, Ola High School, and Union Grove Middle School are either already at capacity or very quickly reaching capacity, and will reach capacity during our SPLOST 6 initiative. So we need to do some expansion at those schools. There'll be classroom additions to each of those schools. And then moving into some of the other items that will be for all of our schools. It's been shared with us. We need to do a better job of communication. You've been by some of our schools. You've seen the old sandwich board style signs that we have. Not great for getting information out there. So as part of E-SPLOST 6, we're going to be replacing those with new digital marquees for all of our 52 locations. So that'll help us with communication at the school level as well. And then lastly, as you can see, some schools are up for some of our maintenance items that we just can't take care of in the general fund. They're too large for that. So you can see we've got 10 schools that will receive a roofing replacement, 8 schools HVAC replacement, and then 15 schools will receive energy management enhancements. And those are kind of on a schedule. They're cyclical in nature. So when they come up during the SPLOST program, those are the ones that identified for this time. We've done a lot of that in previous SPLOST, and that will continue as we go through our SPLOST program. So that kind of ends the projects really quick that are part of E-SPLOST 6. As you can see on your screen, we've already started voting. Voting started February 6th, February 22nd, I'm sorry. And then actual election day is Tuesday, March 16th for our Education SPLOST 6. So that kind of ends my part of the presentation. At this point, I think I'm going to turn this over to Mr. Griffin, who is kind of leading the community side of the campaigning for our SPLOST 6 program.
Thank you, Josh. I have been involved with the Henry County Schools for about 20 years. This is the 4th SPLOST or bond referendum campaign that I've been involved with. And I had the pleasure of serving on the Board of Education in 2012, 2016. I've seen the impact of these projects on our school system. We've grown immensely, and we've done a good job of keeping up with the growth. But we're now at a point where not only do we need to keep up with future growth, but we also need to plan for how we're going to continue to become better. This SPLOST will allow us to make investments that will improve our school system. We'll have more materials for instruction. We'll have an expanded and improved fine arts program. Like I've told many people before, if a kid is walking down the hallway with a violin in a case or a trumpet case, they're headed somewhere positive. This will expand our orchestra programs and replace a lot of the materials that are needed in our fine arts area. The other thing that always caught my mind when I was on the school board was how safe of our schools. We've done a lot to improve school safety. We have a lot of hardening that's been done, but there is an opportunity now to install the swipe system with outside cameras that will allow our schools to become even more safe. You can't make a school perfectly safe, but we ought to do everything that we can that will make our school faculty and our students as safe as possible. There's a global aspect to these investments. If we continue to invest in our schools will continue to attract quality faculty. We'll continue to see positive outcomes at the school level. And then secondly, we'll maintain and maybe even advance our home values. The stability of any community is rooted in its schools. Investing in an E-SPLOST program will allow us to continue to improve our system so that our schools will continue their upward trajectory. You got to get out and vote, folks. We're all tired. It was a long election season last year, but we got to get back to the polls one more time. Early voting is already in progress. There's several locations throughout the county. Those are on various websites. You can early vote tomorrow. I early voted last week. It's easy, it's fast. There's only one item. You'll get done quickly. And you'll feel good about the investment that you're continuing to make in our county. This SPLOST program will allow us to raise $325 million. That's money that's needed to renovate schools and provide resources that will help us as we continue to grow and as we continue to improve. I want to encourage all fellow citizens to vote yes for the E-SPLOST Referendum 6 this year. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Griffin, and thank you to Mr. Malcolm and Mrs. Pope and Superintendent Davis for being able to share those portions of our presentation this evening. This now leads us to the next opportunity for those who have joined us this evening to ask questions of our panel. Specific to these projects that have been shared with you tonight, maybe your respective school, we'd be happy to answer those. So there is a Q&A feature at the bottom of your Zoom panel or screen. Please populate your question in that location, and we'll do our best to answer that. While we wait for some questions to come in, or maybe we did such a great job that no one has any questions, but I doubt that. I'm sure there's one or two out there. I do want to remind those that are joining us and those that may tune in later that if you're looking for specific projects that will be impacting your school, we encourage you to go to your school's website and look just above the headlines section for all of the E-SPLOST information. There's a video message from Superintendent Davis. There's this exact presentation that we just shared with you, with the addition of a school-specific slide that talks about what your school will be receiving. And then if you want something to print off, not this whole presentation, but just a one-pager that you'd like to share with friends and family, or maybe email it to them, there is a one-page document that speaks specifically to all the items that will be generated for the district, as well as the specific items for your particular school. Every school will be getting something as a part of E-SPLOST 6 should it pass, and we appreciate you guys' consideration of this very important issue, the only issue on the ballot for March 16th. It looks like we do have one question that came in from somebody asking if taxes will be raised. The very easy answer is no, they will not. This is a 1 cent sales tax that has been in place since 1998. And as such, it's not just the responsibility of Henry County taxpayers whenever they spend money in the county to support public education. It, is spread amongst anybody who spends a dollar in Henry County. For whatever reason, any dollar that is spent, 1 penny out of every dollar goes directly toward public education, which we like to call that a fair tax, a very equal tax all the way around. So no raises to any taxes in Henry County as a part of E-SPLOST 6. Great question though. Superintendent Davis, anything you'd like to share out as it pertains, or Mrs. Pope, as it pertains to District 4, some of the conversations that you guys have had, or some of the exciting items that you want to cover once again?
Well, I'll just start and then toss the baton again to Mrs. Pope by really underscoring the significant academic investment that we see through this E-SPLOST program. It was resonating with our community members, and all of those District 4 school council meetings or faculty meetings, or even town halls hosted in the District 4 community, was over and over again talking about access to coding and robotics, and really the investment in those instructional resources. And so I really believe the direct reflection of those conversations starts to talk about how do we as a community continue to invest in those opportunities for kids in each and every one of our schools. And I could go on. Of course, there's the devices and the instructional materials, or and the devices and the orchestra and band investment. And because I really think it's about the academic experience and being that district that is a destination district for fine arts education and STEM education, along with a whole child approach to our teaching and learning. So let me toss it back to you, Mrs. Pope, and see how you might elaborate on this opportunity ahead of us.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Davis. I completely agree with everything you just said. I just really, again, want to underscore that how many times I have heard from the community the desire for this STEM education and for it to be accessible to all of our students. I really believe that Henry County, this is going to be what sets us apart. This is going to be what makes a diploma from Henry County Schools be completely different from any other diploma you could receive. And that is all thanks to your voice as a community and the investment that you all continue to make in our schools. I am thrilled about the fine arts enhancements and especially excited about the opportunity for a STEM school. I think that that's really going to be just an amazing addition to our system and to our community. And of course, these times we have found ourselves especially concerned about the security. So I'm really grateful that this will give us an opportunity to really enhance that school security. So I'm really thrilled about this project list. And again, I just want to thank the community for being the voice that started this whole conversation through your commitment to those conversations throughout our community and our schools this last year. So I really appreciate this opportunity to be here with you all tonight. And thank you for letting us elaborate a little bit, Mr. Harden, on what we're really excited about.
Fantastic. So what we'd like to remind folks is that just because you didn't have a question right now, that doesn't mean you won't have one later. And we want to make sure that we get you an answer to your questions regarding E-SPLOST 6 and the proposed projects that are out there, so you can be as informed as possible before you go and make your vote on this very important ballot item for our district. So if you have a question, obviously Mrs. Pope has an email that people can reach out to, or anybody here at the district office can do that. We just want to make sure that you guys can get answers to those important questions. But I haven't seen any further questions populate our question box. So with that being said, I'd like to allow us to close out with some final remarks, and we will start first with Mr. Griffin. Anything you would like to add as we close out tonight's meeting regarding E-SPLOST 6?
One of the most important things as a citizen is to vote, to let your voice be heard. This is an important investment opportunity that we need to continue. I've seen the results of these investments as I've lived in the county for the last 20 years. We've grown schools, we've grown our system, and it's time to continue to make those investments that we need now, not just the new schools or the expansions, but also the things that will enhance the quality of what kids experience every day. I urge everyone to vote, and early voting is through next Friday. And then of course, the day of voting is March 16. Thanks again.
Thank you, Mr. Griffin. Mr. Malcolm, any parting comments or thoughts about E-SPLOST 6 for our viewers?
Yeah, not really. Just again, thank you for allowing us to present to you guys tonight. I always leave something out. So I did want to mention that our current E-SPLOST 5 program, we are scheduled to complete the final construction project for that whole initiative this summer. So I always like to put that out to the community that the projects that we are proposing to you guys to vote for, we get them done in the time frame that we are allowed to get them done in. So it's always good to let you guys know that. And as we move into SPLOST 6, we will continue that pattern of what we put on the ballot, we intend to get done in the time frame that we say we're going to get it done. So other than that, I really appreciate, again, you guys letting us present to you guys tonight.
Thank you for that reminder. Yes, every project that has been approved by the voters, and I will go back and say that we've had overwhelming support in each of the previous 5 E-SPLOST votes, but every project that's been put forth has been completed or is in its current final completion stage. So we're really excited to be able to follow through on all of those things that were approved by our voters. Now let's move to Dr. Knowlton, our Chief of Staff, for his final thoughts on tonight's presentation regarding E-SPLOST 6.
Thank you, Mr. Harden. I just wanted to say thank you all for being here with us this evening. And also, I hope you all found this presentation valuable in making a well-informed decision to join us in enhancing the learning experience for each and every student we serve here in Henry County Schools. Thank you again.
Appreciate those thoughts, Dr. Knowlton. I'll turn it over to Mrs. Pope and then let her kick it over to Superintendent Davis to round us out before we call it an evening.
Thank you again. I just want to thank you, Mr. Griffin, for joining us here tonight and your partnership with our school system. We truly wouldn't be who we are as a school system if it weren't for our incredible community and the partnerships that are there. Thank you to my fellow panelists for being here tonight and taking time out of your busy schedules. And again, thank you so much to our community, to our District 4 constituents for truly being invested in the future of our children. And I'm really, really proud to serve you all. So I'll turn it over to you, Dr. Davis, and I wish everyone a wonderful, safe evening.
That's right, Mrs. Pope. It's been a pleasure to join you, and your investment tonight is also a reflection in your investment in our kids and our community's future. So thank you for your time tonight. We wish you a great night, and we're going to go ahead and adjourn.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great evening.